the United States are backpedaling regarding the sanctions imposed to Venezuela? Well, today we'll discuss.
Welcome to Venezuelan Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
Right now, we already know the situation regarding the sanctions to Venezuela. First, they started to sanction individuals within the Venezuelan government, including the president, Nicolás Maduro. However, since 2019, they have imposed sanctions on the oil industry and business overall to the Venezuelan government. But of course, this affects not only the Venezuelan government, but private companies, institutions, and Venezuelan individuals as well. And this comes because when you have a particular company on a third country, not only in the United States, they are hesitant in order to do business with a Venezuelan private company or a Venezuelan individual. This is the case from, let's start, big oil multinationals in Europe or Asia, also with banking companies that are very hesitant in order to open accounts and do financial transactions with Venezuela. So that affects everyone within Venezuela. And that comes because these companies, usually what they do is do an over-compliance of the particular sanctions, and that affects the whole economy. However, last year we had the Barbados Accord, that it was an agreement between the Venezuelan government, the political opposition, and some of the political opposition, of course, and the U.S. government, some representatives for the Venezuelan situation that come from, of course, the White House, representing Joe Biden. However, the Venezuelan government has not been able to be fully compliant on this particular course. The main agreement was that we will have fair elections on Venezuela in 2024 with all of the political participants. However, the Venezuelan government, especially Venezuelan authorities, have ruled out Maria Corina Machado, that is by far the favorite opposition leader, in order to go to a presidential election, in order to challenge Nicolás Maduro, that is going to be the incumbent president, and is poised to be re-elected this year. And the United States takes this particular ruling out legally of Maria Corina Machado, the favorite candidate of the opposition, regarding doing this election. So they took this as a negative to be compliant with the accords already agreed on Barbados. However, we had recently some statements by Juan Gonzalez, that is the director of the U.S. National Security Council, that he pointed out that what we want is not a particular candidate, but a process. But right after, on February 13, the state-owned mine company, Venezuelan company Minerven, has been de facto sanctioned yet again from this easing of sanctions that is supposed to last 6 months until the mid of April. After that, one of the main heads of the Venezuelan government, Delcy Rodriguez, she mentions that it will be further review the repatriation flights from the U.S. to deported Venezuelan migrants. And of course, the U.S. government didn't like this because they want out these deported Venezuelan migrants. And right now there is some political turmoil between the White House and the Venezuelan government. Now, Juan Gonzalez has resigned from his charge on the U.S. National Security Council. And right now is speaking Jake Sullivan. He is also a senior advisor of the U.S. National Security Council. And he's mentioning that right now we have another issue regarding politics in Venezuela. The human rights activist Rocio San Miguel has been detained and indicted with crimes against the Venezuelan government. So the situation is kind of tricky right now. Apparently, according to the last words from the White House, is that the sanctions are going to be fully into effect after this easing period of 6 months that will be ending in April. Now, how this is going to affect the Venezuelan industry? Well, the Venezuelan industry has been steadily recovering. Let's say Venezuela used to produce around 3 million barrels of crude oil per day. Since the crisis started on 2013, it dropped to a staggering 4,000 barrels of crude oil per day. That was on COVID, that was the lowest on recent history, and right now is around 800,000 barrels of crude oil per day. However, there are a handful of companies that have waivers in order to keep increasing the production in Venezuela. The biggest one is Chevron. Chevron, of course, the juggernaut multinational, oil multinational that is working currently on the country and is still allowed to run freely their operations within the country. Also, a handful of European companies are still investing in Venezuela as well. And also some Hindu companies from India are poised to keep working and further increase their operations in Venezuela. Apparently, what is going to end up happening is that maybe we can have, after this ease of sanctions, that on this particular 6-month period that ends right now in April, after that, the sanctions are not going to be as draconian as it used to be since 2019 during the Trump administration. However, not as easy as has been on the past, let's say, 6 months, last year. So a bunch of waivers are going to be fully into effect. However, still, there will be some hiccups and issues for further into developing the Venezuelan oil industry. Now, the biggest issue right now within the United States is two things. First is an election year and reimposing sanctions fully into effect to the Venezuelan oil industry that can increase the price of crude oil, of course, supply and demand. That is very volatile, especially right now with the wars going right now in Ukraine and the Middle East. So that can increase if Venezuela drops or just keeps their output of crude oil to the rest of the world. That can increase the worldwide prices of both crude oil and gasoline. And the gas prices are a very particular issue within the United States. And if the price of gasoline goes up worldwide, and especially in the United States, that can affect the re-election of the incumbent president, Joe Biden. The second issue is regarding the return of Donald Trump to the White House next year. We know that Donald Trump is more aggressive regarding their foreign affairs policy, especially regarding Venezuela. So he's not as due to negotiate freely with the Venezuelan government. He will be more draconian, more harsh in order to negotiate with him, and that can create some issues. However, even during the Trump administration, the Venezuelan oil industry cannot reorganize. So I don't see further sanctions even with the Trump administration. Also, there are third parties involved regarding this, not only the negotiations, but their stake, their investing on the Venezuelan oil industry that comes from Western Europe, comes from Asia. I already mentioned China, that is very poised to keep investing in the future in the Venezuelan oil industry. Of course, we have China and Russia. And if these particular issues that we're seeing on the Middle East are going to continue, that, of course, affects the worldwide supply of crude oil, and that can affect the market overall. So it will be on the best interest of the United States to let Venezuela freely keep developing their oil industry, not for the worldwide price of not only crude oil, but also gasoline as well. So the situation is very particular, but right now with the Biden administration, that we don't know if they are going to continue next year on office. But right now, apparently, what might end up happening is still first, we have to, when you do the account, you do the math regarding the Venezuelan political situation. The Chavismo, Maduro is going to continue be president. They are going to continue in power, most likely, unless a black swan event happens. And Biden probably will, and the Democrats will deal with that. So they're going to keep him in power because they cannot do anything else. And if Trump comes into power, it will require a very delicate balancing act from him. For one hand, and he is going to, of course, keep bashing the Venezuelan government and so on. But however, he also is not able to do as much. So maybe they will have to continue some communications with the Venezuelan government.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.